So today we'll be discussing the positive or the negative development question, which is just like the agree or disagree question that we discussed prior. It's basically like the agree or disagree question that we discussed prior. In fact, on any essay writing you would come across in the exam, any essay writing that you'd come across the exam, they have similar pattern, not the same pattern. Similar pattern, not the same pattern. What do I mean by similar pattern? The introduction would always be the same thing. The introduction would always be to paraphrase or rephrase the question statement, then provide an answer for the question by highlighting the main point. Introduction would basically be paraphrase the question statement, rephrase the question statement, or paraphrase or the question statement or rephrase it, then provide an answer to the question by highlighting the main point. We said there would always be an initial statement to the question, which we called the preamble. Is that so? There would always be a preamble to the statement. There would always be a question. The question is usually divided into two parts. We made mention of that. So any of those questions that you have, the introduction will be that preamble to the question. Many people feel that, to many people, it is illegal, or in many countries, physical punishment, although physical punishment is illegal, so that's a sample of a question now. Although physical punishment is considered illegal in most countries, but some people argue that parents should have the right to punish their children this way. That is what the question is based off on. That is what the question is based off on. Then there is always going to be the question itself, which will now ask maybe, do you agree or disagree? There's always going to be that part. So all the questions, all the IELTS questions, what you need to do is, if it asks you, do you agree or disagree, basically tell them, you basically tell them, I agree, after paraphrasing the question statement, and you give reasons for why you are agreeing. If you've done that for the introduction, then the body paragraph now follows a similar pattern for all questions, follows the same similar pattern for all questions, whereby I would need to introduce the point. I would need to introduce the point in body paragraph 1. I'll need to explain it, then I'll need to give a relevant example. And then, this is where the difference comes in. This is why I said they are similar. I didn't say they are the same thing. This is why I said they are similar. In this part, at the end of, after giving your example, it depends on the question. For some questions, you might need to state a supporting opinion. For some questions, you might need to state the consequence. We've talked about this, so I'm just basically trying to remind us. Then the same thing in body paragraph 2. Now, the positive or negative development question, which we said is the topic of today. Now, the positive or negative development question is one very straightforward question. That would basically ask you for your opinion on a particular topic. It would ask you, do you think this idea or this scenario is positive or negative? Let's see an example of a question. I'll send the question to the group chat. Please, let's use that as an example quickly. But meanwhile, I'll read the question before I'm able to locate it. The question reads, nowadays, because of digital technology, it is now possible for not only studios, but also individuals to produce their own films. Nowadays, because of digital technology, okay, please check the group chat. I think I sent the question to the group chat. The question reads, nowadays, because of digital technology, it is possible for not only studios but also individuals to produce their own films. Do you think this is a positive or a negative development? Notice how they just asked you, do you think? Sometimes they can ask, is this a positive or negative development? Or they can ask, do you think this is a positive or negative development? Irrespective of how the question is asked. This question is basically seeking your opinion or your stand about this whole scenario, this whole situation. You can either say it is a positive development or basically tell them it is a negative development. You can either say it is a positive development or tell them it is a negative development depending on your opinion. Depending on your opinion. Mind you, I said your opinion. That's the word I use. Your opinion. What do you think? That's basically what the question is asking you. Give the examiner your opinion. Now let me ask, Madam AB, looking at the question I sent to the group chat, what do you think? Do you think it's a positive or a negative development? Why? Why do you think it's a positive? So what makes it positive? Yes, we know it's true. What makes it positive? Mr. Isaac, what do you think? It saves time and resources. Do we say that? Okay, now let's put it this way. Okay, that's fine. Now let's put it this way. Let's say you are in the WhatsApp group chat, have you? You see all those anyhow videos that I used to post. Do you see all those anyhow videos that I used to post? All those anyhow videos that I used to share the link. Okay, you've just seen only one. Okay. Let's say, okay, those are just anyhow videos. Now, that's one thing I can use as an example right now. Do you think me being able to produce them on my own without necessarily going to the studio, do you think that is a positive development? If yes, why? If no, why? That is basically what the question is asking you. Madam Abi, you're on TikTok, yeah? I think so you could tell me say no. Now, that's another thing. That's another angle of it. Do you think all the things we post on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the videos we make, photos and all that we make for those platforms, do you think it's a positive development? If yes, why? If it is not a positive development, it means it's a negative development from your perspective. Then why? That's basically how you look at questions in the IELTS test. What do I think? What is my opinion? Okay, this is my opinion. Then why do I think like this? Why do I think in this direction? So basically, these are what I need to look at as an individual to be able to answer any question. This is just for the positive or negative development, but then you can apply the same technique to all other questions, like they agree or disagree, they discuss both views and give your opinion, the double direct question, the cause, problem and solution question, even the advantages and disadvantages question. All these questions, we'll talk about them. We will still talk about them in this class. But however, we're talking about the positive or negative development question. The question now is, look at the topic and then ask yourself as an individual, what do I think? Then write an essay based on your opinion, following the simple templates that we have given in this class. That's all. That's just all you need to do in the exam. So, to answer the positive or negative development question, we have to first of all look at this question we have. Nowadays, because of digital technology, it is possible for not only studios but also individuals to produce their own films. Do you think this is a positive or a negative development? Now, Madam Ebi said she thinks it's a positive development. Mr. Isaac said he thinks it's a positive development. Now, Madam Ebi just told us that she thinks it's true. But Mr. Isaac told us that to him, it's a positive development as it saves time. So we're going to stick with positive development. But if you are to ask me, I'll tell you that I think it's both positive and negative. That's what I'll say. I think it's both positive and negative. And I can explain why I said that. But then, I'll do that later. Now, to answer this question, I'll need to first of all take the initial statement and then paraphrase it. That's now my introduction, 2 components of the introduction. So the first component, I'll say something like, can you hear me? That Pastor John. How to write the introduction to this question. We said basically all that is needed is you paraphrase the question statement. You would need to paraphrase the question statement. That is to say, basically, to do this for this question, I'll basically say, in recent times, due to improvements in technology, or due to digital technology, or due to advancement in digital technology, it is possible for individuals as well as studios to produce their own films or to make their own movies. Full stop. Then the next component of the introduction now warrants me to answer the question by highlighting the main points. Now, warrants me to answer the question by highlighting the main point. What can I say here? I'll basically say, I am of the opinion that this is a positive development. I am of the opinion that this is a positive development. Now, I want to also give reasons for why I think it's a positive development, still in that introduction. I am of the opinion that this is a positive development as it brings about this and this. Or I'm of the opinion that this is a positive development as it helps to reduce the cost of production on the part of individuals, as well as helping to explore creative talent. Now, notice how I discussed or how I highlighted 2 examples in that introduction. Notice how I highlighted 2 examples in that introduction. Because these 2 points, or examples, these 2 points rather, are what I am going to be discussing in body paragraph 1 as well as body paragraph 2. In body paragraph 1, I'll tell them that it helps to reduce cost on the part of individuals. It helps to reduce cost on the part of individual. Then I would explain that. Then I'll give a relevant example, and then I would state the consequence. Consequence is basically the result of a thing. What can it result in? Not necessarily negative, but depending on what I think at that particular point in time. Depending on what I think at that particular point in time. Then, so what I'm basically going to do here is to introduce the point. To begin with, I am of the opinion, I believe that individuals being able to produce their own film is a positive development, as it helps to reduce cost of production on their part. That is me introducing the point. Then still in body paragraph 1, I'll now explain what I meant by that. The cost of using advanced studios to produce films and all is quite expensive, ranging into millions of dollars or millions of naira to produce a singular movie. But an individual being able to do this with the advancement of technology on their own reduces this cost to the barest minimum. Full stop. Take, for instance, the production of an imaginary film in my head, which, if it were given to big studios or to larger studios, it would have cost millions of dollars. But being that I was able to produce this in my bedroom and with the cast and crew that I had, it cost less than $1,000, something like that. Consequently, this can lead to an individual being able to save money for other projects. Full stop. Body paragraph 1, I am done with it. Then when I move to body paragraph 2, I can say in addition, because I'm continuing with the same line of thought. In addition, another reason I think it's a positive development, or I think individuals being able to produce their own film is a positive development, is because it helps in the exposition of talents. It helps in the exposition of talent. Full stop. Then I explain what I meant by that. Then I give a relevant example to support that. Then the conclusion, basically a summary of everything I had written, which I had also written in the introduction. If I were to write an introduction that followed what I did, I'll basically rephrase that introduction for the conclusion. Are we together, please? Do we understand all I have said? So for the introduction, I basically said, in recent times, due to advancement in digital technology, it is possible for not only studios, but also individuals to produce their own movies. Full stop. I am of the opinion that this improvement is a positive development, as it helps in reducing cost as well as exposing individual talent to the world. Full stop. And that is my entire introduction. Like what? You're talking about a written sample. To look for a written sample now. Can we get it? Yes, I can get a sample, but I have to look for it. But meanwhile, I'll send the document. In the document, there should be samples. I'll send the document for the writing to the group chats. You're welcome. So, do we have any challenge with this before we continue, or we call it a day here? So we can write on this, then we see it in the next class, and then we'll discuss the next question. So to summarize all that we've discussed, we basically said in your essay, in theory, you should basically look at or look out for questions. The keywords in the questions help you to understand the question. And when you understand the question, it will be easier to actually write on that. Now, to write the introduction to any question, you want to paraphrase the question. That is the premise on which the question is based. You want to paraphrase that, and you want to give an answer to the question that was asked. You want to give an answer to the question that was asked. After paraphrasing, you give an answer to the question that was asked. That is the introduction. Then the body paragraph, what you want to do is you introduce the point, the point you're going to be talking about. You introduce it. For each paragraph, you do this. You introduce the point, you explain that point, you give a relevant example that supports that point. And if need be, in the case of this question, you state the consequence. What can it lead to? So basically, that's a summary of all that we had to say this evening. Do we get that? So please pay attention to that. Do you know synonyms? What are synonyms? Words that convey similar meaning, or words that are nearest in meaning. Those are synonyms. Words that convey similar meaning, or words that are nearest in meaning. Those are synonyms. Now, when you are trying to paraphrase, what you basically do is to look at the words in themselves. What meaning do they convey? And then convey that same meaning using the synonyms of those words. In other words, the words can change, but the meaning should remain intact. Are we together? So that's basically what paraphrasing means. Yeah. Mr. Isaac, do you understand all that we've said so far? So the document I sent to the group chat, you can actually use that document to look up the other questions that we're yet to discuss, and you would actually understand them. The document is quite self-explanatory, but then we'll still discuss them as time proceeds. Are we good? So I think on that note, we could draw the curtains today.